Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome to our webinar on fostering the circular transformation of businesses. My name is Luc Schmerber, and I'm a thematic expert for SME competitiveness of the Interreg Europe Learning Platform. And I will be today your host together with my colleague Mart. Mart, maybe you can show yourself. Yeah, Mart will be with us, and he will follow the chat and take the questions throughout the events. Thank you, Mart. On the background, our colleague from the communication team, Lotte, is also with us, and she's available to the chat. If you have any specific issues, you can take contact through the chat. Our webinar today is co-organized by the ICR Plus Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management. We will have a short introduction of ICR Plus by Iain Gulland, the current president. I will just address, before we go into the presentations and the content, some technical aspects. So the webinar is being recorded, and the materials and the replay will be available after the webinar from the Interreg Europe website. And throughout the webinar, you will have the possibility to interact with us and with the speakers, and to submit questions throughout the chat. The GoToWebinar tools doesn't allow the participants, the audience, to speak up, to show up, but you can ask your questions through the chat. So you don't have to wait for asking your questions until the presentations are finished. You can start submit them when they occur, and we will do our best to answer all the questions. If some questions remain unasked during the webinar, we will do our best to answer them after the webinar. That works normally fine. So also getting in touch with the speakers if needed. So that's for some technical aspects, and so now we can dive more into the content of what we will be doing today, discussing today. Why a webinar on fostering the circular transformation of businesses? Well, it is relevant to our community, the Interreg Europe community, which requested the topic, and will mention it as being highly relevant. Of course, that's not a surprise. That's a topic of high relevance for the funding period, the upcoming funding period 21-27 in most of the programs on European, national and local level. You see here an excerpt of the action plan for the circular economy, and it's directly related to SME competitiveness. This is why we also deal with that today into the thematic objective SME competitiveness. What we also have seen that many sources and events address the circular transformation or transition of the economy in general, but not always from the perspective of single business, why it makes economically sense also for each single businesses to enter into this transition. And we decided to tackle this together with ICR Plus in this first event of several which will come later. Some examples why it is relevant for the businesses to enter into the circular transition, which you can they will be taken up by our speakers in their presentation at different places. Well, it helps reduce the dependence on scarce or non-renewable resources. Resource costs might be volatile if they are scarce. The supply might be unsure. We've seen several examples of this, many over the recent months with different crises, like the COVID crisis, the Suez Channel, and so on. But there are other reasons, of course. The contribution to mitigate the climate change, well, it helps also to reduce the climate-related risk for each single company, of course. And there are also some other aspects, like gaining competitive advantage and move ahead of the competition by being ahead of the the regulation and ahead of what needs to be done, especially because that has consequences on customer interaction and loyalty, attractiveness of the brand, because both customers and investors are more and more looking at the green aspect of the businesses before entering any transaction. In the place where I'm living in Baden-Württemberg, it's quite clear that during the next funding periods, only a few, almost no projects will get reasonable funding if there is not a strong circular aspect into it. So that's a high incentive, of course. And it can also lead to some increase in productivity by putting together green transformation with the digital transformation. They are very often linked. That you will see. The policy context, probably most of you know about it, at least in part. We will not dive into details, that would be too long today, but there is the European Green Deal from 2019, the end of 2019, the new industrial strategy for Europe from March 2020 included also the Green Deal aspects for the SMEs. The Circular Economy Action Plan from 2020 is as part of the Green Deal. So that's some examples. I show two examples of very recent news, like this, the Digital Day, the EU countries who commit to leading the green and digital transformation. That's from March. 24 member states of Norway and Iceland who've signed a new declaration. You can look into that in more details. More recently, also from a few days ago, the UN published the Circular Economy Toolbox for Europe with different materials. So it's present everywhere, and it's a high on the policy agenda. So that's what you can expect today. We will try to answer partly how regional local authorities can promote and foster the circular transition of the economy, and which type of measures they can use to foster the transformation on the single business level, not only on systemic level, which is important, of course, but to motivate each of the businesses to engage into this transformation. So there will be different incentives. We call them here soft incentives, awards, business competition, some more hard thing like certificates. There will be examples for that, and some financial incentives from different areas. We will have 4 speakers today. I will just ask the speakers to turn on their camera when I give the name, just that people can see them. So we have Annalisa Spalazzi from the EIT Climate-KIC, who will present what EIT Climate-KIC does, and with more details the regional innovation scheme. That's something quite interesting. We will have Alfred Vara from the Waste Agency of Catalonia will present us what the Waste Agency is doing, and the focus on the Ecodesign award. We have Øyvind Lyngen Laderud from Kristiansand from Norway. We will present more details, the Eco-lighthouse scheme they have implemented in Norway. And Iain Gulland from Zero Waste Scotland and president of ICR+, who will present us different things, but with a focus on the circular economy investment fund. So thank you to all 4 to join us today. We are very much looking forward to your contributions. So 4 speakers will have almost 2 hours, a maximum of 2 hours for our webinar. Will close latest at 12 o'clock, but we wanted to give everybody the time to present what they are doing. We also have today a large audience. We had slightly over 200 registrations, and quite a lot of persons were new to our events, so we wanted to briefly present what the Interreg Europe platform is about. We have different services, export support, the community with our webinars, the knowledge hub with different documents, then the good practices. Give some examples on our good practice database. You have the link also on the slide. We have almost 2,000 good practices on different topics, not only circular economy, but many of them are also dealing with circular economy. So you can access them and look at what others are doing. They come mostly from our projects. But that's a lot of inspiration. We have had several webinars dealing with circular economy, and there will be more to come together with ICR Plus. They are not scheduled yet, but during this year we plan to have a few other events to tackle this topic. From our website, you can access the recording of the webinar, so that might still be interesting. Most of them are reasonably recent, but the information is quite accurate still. We've published some policy briefs from colleagues of us on circular economy that you will find also from our website. You can download them so that it's interesting. That's an overview of what the projects are doing, which kind of policies and practice they are implementing. So that's likely relevant also to many in the audience. And also what I wanted to show a bit more in details is the individual support serving the needs of the Interreg Europe community. Because not everybody is involved in the project, and some projects have already finished, and some others are in the phasing out. But there is still support available for the policy makers throughout Europe through the policy help desk, when you can just from our website, from the link below, you can just submit questions related to policy aspects, and we will get in touch with you and answer your questions and signpost you to more relevant information. We have targeted matchmaking online discussion. So those are small meetings, 2-3 hours, mostly online. It will be also on site at different events when we again have the opportunity to have on-site events when you can meet with experts or from other regions dealing with similar issues as you do. And we have the peer reviews, which is the extended version. Those are 2-day meetings, which currently are performed online, but before the COVID crisis, we used to perform them on site. So it's up to 6 experts coming to your regions, trying to answer a specific policy issue that you might have. At this stage, I would ask Lotte to show briefly our video presenting the peer review services to give you an overview of how that works.
Do you work for a regional or a local authority that is particularly interested in exploring new policy topics in innovation, environment, low carbon economy, or SME competitiveness? If so, the Policy Learning Platform is made for you, and we have a new golden service, which is the peer review. Now we are opening a call that is permanently available for you to apply. No deadline, you can apply whenever suits you, and the peer review offers you the great, excellent opportunity to interact with our thematic experts and with other peers across Europe to help you solve your policy challenge.
Thank you, Lotte. So the call is open permanently, so you can submit your registration, your applications whenever you want, or you can get in touch directly with us. If you have specific questions related to that, we would help you with that. I included on my presentation some examples of peer reviews which were performed in the framework of circular economy. They are quite recent, and there are many other topics, but I just included those ones for today. So don't hesitate. Our calls are open permanently, and so that's a good opportunity to access support from our community. So that's and that is also my last slide. In the handouts, you will find presentations and materials related to our services. So I would invite you to have a look, or to visit our website to see what could be relevant to you, and we would be happy to answer your requests, of course. So now, before we go into the thematic presentations, I would like to welcome Iain Gulland in his function of President of ICR Plus, so that we can hear a few words from Iain, what the organization is doing. Iain, please. You need to unmute
myself.
Please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good start. Thank you very much, Luc. And I'll just show a couple of slides as way of introduction to ACR Plus. Hopefully everybody can see that. So hopefully everybody's aware who we are. We're an international network of cities and regions who all share a common goal of developing a more sustainable resource management culture through particularly prevention, reuse and recycling, and the idea now of accelerating the circular economy within our territories and beyond. So we currently have about 100 members, over 23 EU countries, representing about 1,100 actual municipalities, primarily in Europe, but we're now expanding. We now have members in the kind of in the wider Mediterranean basin, in Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Palestine, and Jordan. We're obviously delighted to be supporting this webinar today. It represents a long-term commitment and cooperation with Interreg. We obviously share the vision and the regional cooperation around sustainability. We obviously run ACR Plus. We run a number of projects already under Interreg to share expertise and knowledge, and to develop tools to assist practitioners actually on the ground. So very much part of our work is to support practical action across all our members, wherever they are. Clearly, we're an active member in the Interreg EU policy learning platform, and in fact, it's been a fantastic sounding board more recently with impact of COVID-19 on municipal waste management services, recycling services, which has impacted on everyone across the world, not just in Europe. But having the Interreg learning platform there has been really really important. Just another piece of work that we're involved in as a campaign to really promote the importance of the circular economy and reducing carbon emissions. So using a sophisticated carbon metric tool, we're looking to support our members to not just monitor the full life cycle impacts of waste, but actually identify strategies, opportunities and interventions that will help reduce that. So as part of a campaign to reduce the impact of our waste by 25% by 2025, we're rolling out work with, we've been working with three members of the Brussels region, Genoa and Pays de la Loire, as a kind of pilot phase, and that's gone very well, and there'll be more of that very soon. But we're now looking towards further cohorts of municipalities around Europe to really get the idea that the circular economy is absolutely good for the environment, good for reducing carbon, good for tackling climate change, as well as providing economic and social opportunities and equalities across the world. So thanks again, and yeah, I'm delighted to be here and be able to represent ACR Plus, but also Zero Waste Scotland later on in the webinar. Thanks, Luc.
Thank you, Iain, for the introduction. Maybe there will be questions to you during the event, also to ICR Plus, which you might answer at the end of the event. We have some time, hopefully, for that. So now we will go into directly into the content of the event, and with our first speaker. We are very happy to have a representative of EIT Climate-KIC, which you probably all know. I mean, EIT Climate-KIC, maybe not Annalisa yet, and she will give us an overview of what the Climate-KIC is doing, and with a focus on the regional innovations scheme. So, Annalisa, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Luc, and thanks to the whole Interreg Europe team for inviting me here. I will start sharing my screen in a second with the presentation. So again, thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and to be showing a bit our way of working in circular economy in EIT Climate-KIC, and in particular how we are working with regions in Southern and Central Eastern Europe. Firstly, the why we are doing it, and why we are doing it, and the reason is mostly that moving towards a circular economy is actually a way to maximize the chances of avoiding the most dangerous effects of climate change. However, this means that we need to work in a big change, in the big picture change at the whole system level. This means in terms of numbers that if we are moving towards a circular economy development path in Europe, this could result in a reduction of primary material consumption of the 32% by 2030, and even of the 53% by 2050. This means this is a real opportunity for Europe to connect economic growth together with a sustainable development. European Commission has recognized the urgent need to transition to a circular economy, and this has been also mentioned to us previously by the colleagues, and has demonstrated in the EU Green Deal and the new action plan on circular economy how far this is needed. Starting from 2015, actually several initiatives have been started at local, regional, and even European level, but not with the impact that was needed, and that is now asked also through the Green Deal requirements. So circular economy is understood as a key tool to decarbonize our regions at scale, but now the point is how we can make it in a systemic way. This is where Climate-KIC is entering, and the organization itself, for those that don't know it, is a knowledge and innovation community launched in 2010 by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. And the scope is to boost the innovation in climate across Europe, empowering a community of businesses, policy, industrial actors, civil society, and also universities and research. And yet our mission is actually to empower regions, industries, and communities to implement a bold transition towards circular economy. So always looking also at how this connects to the decarbonization. Our activities are always combining tailored actions across education, entrepreneurship, and innovation. We have identified key levers that are making this transition happen and are mostly connected to those that we have listed here as policy and regulation framework, behavior, funding and finance, technology, education and skills. But even more, we have identified that actually is not the single action that can make this transition to circular economy happen, but also how we are interconnecting them, how we are understanding this system, and how we make sense of this whole actions connected to levers all together to see what actually we are moving in our system. How we do it in a more practical way, there are several ways, and there is a list here. We are really focused on the community, network, and stakeholders engagement components, being a community-based organization. Here, I will be focusing a bit on the two topics that are most relevant for the connection with the program, on how we work in European policy and public funding, and also in particular in the transitioning national and regional economies from linear to circular. This is done through two main initiatives, one being deep demonstrations through which we are building whole place-based and systemic circular economy transition plans with some of the governments, and I will give you some examples in my presentation later on, and through the Regional Innovation Scheme program. The regional innovation scheme is actually detailing in the exploration of how circular economy can act as an enabler for multi-stakeholders innovation ecosystem activation in regions that are lying behind in terms of innovation scoreboard in Southern and Central Eastern Europe, The program itself is designed as a long-term initiative that is trying to strengthen these ecosystems and to connect the regional development with the innovation score. The overarching objective of this program is to contribute to the advancement of innovation performance and strengthening the capacity of the connections between those businesses, incubators, scale-up, SMEs, but also education, research, and policies. So it's really the core of how we are connecting actors. As you can see, looking to the mapping of the moderate and modest innovator countries and regions in the regional innovation scoreboard and the level of the regional development, we can see that there is a clear connection and how such a program that is connecting the development at economic level and at innovation level can act on regional disparities across Europe. How we do it is through enabling local hubs. So in each country we are working in the program, we are activating a hub that is not an informal entity that is composed by a business organization, a public sector one, an education and research, and a social connected organization, meaning that we are not having only one organization trying to boost this ecosystem of innovation, but we always ask through open call to have at least this minimum of component to ensure that we are able to have a wide connection to the ecosystem. The countries we are working on are mostly on the whole Southern and Central Eastern Europe through different ways of acting in programming, but this is really focusing on areas that are not only the ones that are needing to boost innovation and the economic development, but also those that are most vulnerable to climate change and where circular economy can be a boost for the three elements to be challenged together. In fact, circular economy is seen as one of the main priority for us in terms of how we are accelerating those transitions in these countries. To give a bit of an overview on how this program can contribute to low carbon circular transitions, some of you might have already seen this graph coming from the toolkit on sustainable transition for cohesion policy by DG Regio, and we have identified which are the areas we are supporting these transitions to happen, meaning to activate some niches on circular economy and also in this transition in education and in entrepreneurship, but also really understanding what is out there in mapping the system and stakeholders, and also which projects are currently happening in a determined area. And finally, also working at policy level. So supporting through technical assistance and capacity building policymakers and program owners to transition towards circular economy. We can speak about this happening at several scales, so European, national, regional, and city industrial level. Now I wanted to focus in some specific cases just to bring it a bit to the concreteness. And I will show you 3 examples. First one being from Slovenia. In this case, we are working with the government of Slovenia to create a comprehensive circular regenerative economy plan that is based in 3 flagship areas and are connected to the stakeholders group, which are communities, the businesses, and also policy. All those programs are taken and designed as a single one, but then the sense making out of it is done in a portfolio perception and based on the 5 main value chains priority of the country. So this is how we are actually supporting the activation of this circular economy plan. In Cantabria, at a regional level, we are working with the regional government to work through value chains in a technical assistance approach, considering a multi-level policy mix framework. So having the Green Deal Recovery Fund, Cohesion Fund, and several strategies happening, we are seeing and working with the government in co-designing actions that are actually working on the adaptation of strategies to implement them and to consider circular economy as a connector among those strategies to make actually happen in the ground. A last example is on Bulgaria, a different case because it's also back to national scale, but here circular economy is not yet high in agenda, Despite that, we have been working on a value network mapping, considering industrial clusters for circularity. What has emerged from this case specifically, but in general for the three I mentioned, is the really fundamental role of national governments on how this is connecting clusters, industries, users, and consumers. So really the role of policymakers to enable this transition to circular economy to happen. If I should design the main outcome of what we have been learning through those cases, is really how fundamental is this component of the facilitated co-design of programs, and as well as the stakeholders engagement being a priority in terms of how we are supporting the understanding and the industrial needs are clearly understood, and also how the technical assistance to policymakers and to program owners is a fundamental aspect also to make sure those three elements are coming together. Just closing with something that is proactively explaining also on the technical assistance component, and giving you the example of a project that has been just closed. It was a Horizon 2020 funded project, Cicerone, in which the objective was to coordinate a circular economy research and innovation development in Europe. And the output has been a strategic research and innovation agenda for circular economy, but also the creation of a circular cooperation hub that has been just launched. And the idea is to support the program owners in co-designing joint programs. Here you can see the outline of the service, and of course those slides will be shared and those information are available in the website. But the idea is really how you can make sure that there is a support towards program owners and the policymakers that are in need to support businesses for the circular economy transition. So it's really to try to have a comprehensive picture, the understanding on the local needs, but also on how this can be connected at a European level, and how not only working in the regional, national boundaries, but also across systems, across Europe, can make the circular economy to happen. This said, I will conclude my presentation just mentioning on the relevance of circular economy to be not the answer to every transition and to all we need for our regions, but being a real and clear way of reaching out to everyone that is understandable for policy, for business, and for consumers, for citizens. So it's really something that speaks to everyone, and is a move to understand how cooperation and collaboration is key in terms of making transition to happen. That's why it's also one of our priorities, and the way we are pushing forward to ensure we support Southern and Central Eastern European regions at the best. With this, I close here, and I hope I've been clear enough and in time on the presentation. I'm available for any question and also for following up. And now I thank again the organization, and I look forward to hear the speakers that are coming after me. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalisa. We have some time for question also directly to you. If I just wanted to say, while people are maybe typing the questions on the chat, let's see that we uploaded in the handout some of the materials that you mentioned, and in the chat also the links to your websites, and some of the projects you mentioned have been provided. So that I would encourage the audience to look at it from the handouts there in the panel. Mart, do we have always some questions to Annalisa at this stage?
Yes, so I would take two questions. So one is just a clarifying question, maybe from my side first. So are your services accessible to everybody, or do you need to be involved in one of the regional innovation schemes, or how does that work if there's a region that's interested in what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So the whole services that we are having in terms of policy and working regions are available to the whole Europe. So it's a program that is spread across countries. Then we have a focused initiative that is to specifically enhance the performance innovation in Southern and Central Eastern Europe. But this is sort of a further support that we are giving in terms of capacity building to this area. But in general, we are working with several regions also coming from Ireland, from Italy, or also in other countries across Europe. So more than welcome to have regions coming from other countries too. As we know, circular economy is actually in need for not only for the South and Central Eastern Europe, but in general, Europe and worldwide.
Is that linked to any funding, Annalisa? Do you provide funding, or is it facilitation, or both?
We have mostly facilitation role and the providing of the services, while for the Southern and Central Eastern Europe, we also have seed funding to activate activities provided by the funds we have through EIT as organization.
Okay, and I guess sorry, Mart, go on.
No, go ahead, Luc.
So the overall services from Climate-KIC, they are probably accessible to anybody. I mean, you have calls and things like projects in general.
Yeah, exactly. So there are several services, some coming through calls, but also in general, really on this advisory work on just contacting, and we can get in touch on understanding the needs and supporting regions in their plans.
Yeah. Mart, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. And there was actually a follow-up question to our discussion from Marianne, who asked whether you work mostly on the national level with the regions, or do you directly work with cities as well?
Thank you for the question. So yes, we work also at cities level. So there was actually a full program that was run by Climate-KIC on the circular cities. So really how you can make circularity coming into cities. And we work also through specifically on the general system approach in several cities across Europe, currently 15. And is a program called Healthy Clean Cities. So definitely we work also at the city level.
That's very clear. And then there's a more general question coming from Dora, who's wondering that how do you make sure that funding gets to where it is meant to go, and being a bit skeptical about potentially political situations which might hinder this process of maybe, I presume, meaning misuse of funds. So do you have an answer to this?
I wish I had a clear answer and also a solution for this, because actually we know is one of the major problems. But the idea actually on working in this collaboration locally, but also at European level, and enhancing this cooperation way is kind of a way to mitigate this to happen. Just because you are working with several actors, you are building the connections, and in a way it's not easier, but maybe it's more facilitated the way you have also control and the monitoring of what is happening. So it's not a solution, but it's the way we are approaching it, also to bring this positive cooperation way of working in regions and countries we are engaging with. But it's a very good question, and I would love a further, really longer discussion about this topic too.
Okay, thank you, Annalisa. Mart, do we have further questions at this stage, or? No,
not at this stage. I think Annalisa provided very clear answers to the questions we had at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Annalisa will have to leave us before the end of the meeting. She tried to stay. So maybe if there are questions towards the end for you, Annalisa, we will forward them and try to see how we can answer that in collaboration. So that should be fun. Thank you, Annalisa, for that and for being here today. And then we can move to our presentations out of the Interreg Europe and ICR Plus communities on the different topics I mentioned in the agenda, the soft incentives, the market recognition schemes, and the financial incentive. And our first speaker, which I would now call on stage, is Alfred Vara from the Waste Agency of Catalonia. So Alfred, the stage is yours. I will disappear and you can. You are muted, Alfred.
Sorry, you're right.
It works.
It works. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can see the presentation.
Okay. So thank you again for introducing me. Luc, thank you to the Interreg community for inviting the Waste Agency of Catalonia to this webinar, and also to the ACR Plus Association, which we are also have been already working together with the ACR Plus from many years. For example, in the field of waste prevention concerning projects, for example, the European Week for Waste Reduction, Let's Clean Up Europe, etc. So a long story with ACR Plus and also with Interreg Europe. First of all, I will only have a few words concerning the framework, because I know everybody know about the European framework on circular economy, which has already been introduced by Luc at the beginning of the webinar. So we have to take into account all what I will explain will have to be understood within this context, within this framework, concerning the circular economy action plan at European level, also all the directives on waste and single-use plastics, for example. At Spanish level, we have to consider that there's a new law transposing the directives on waste into the Spanish legal framework, which will be available in the very near future. And also in Catalonia, we have to be taking into consideration that there is a new disruptive law that is being prepared. It might be already available for next year, 2022, I think, a new disruptive law on waste and resources. Also, we are working since 2015 in a green economy strategy and also in a strategy for eco-design. And now we are working on a bioeconomy strategy and also on a circular economy roadmap in Catalonia. So this was a little bit to introduce the framework in which we are doing things in Catalonia. And as I've been asked to make a point on the soft incentives and in particular on the Ecodesign award, I will begin by an index of my presentation. I will speak very briefly about grants, because after my presentation there will be another presentation on economic instruments. So maybe at a later point of the discussion, of the panel discussion, I will be explaining a little more about grants in Catalonia, but I will make a point on food waste prevention, another one on reuse, and finally I will be speaking about the Catalonia Ecodesign Award, which was the real point that I want to share with you. Just briefly, these are the different type of grants we have in Catalonia. Just to make the point, there are grants considering the different stages, from the very beginning, research and development and innovation, also implementation projects from private and public environments. So I will come back to this if the panel discussion asks me about this point. Considering the issue of food waste prevention, it's important to make a point on the fact that we participated in the Eco Waste for Food project and Interreg Europe project, which allowed us to learn how to work on shared agendas, which is one of the best learnings, I think, from the Eco Waste for Food project, from which we described what had to be done on the field of food waste prevention in Catalonia. We divided it in 6 challenges, 18 actions, and almost 150 projects, with a global execution of 71% in the period 2019-2020, taking also into consideration that there was the COVID-19 situation, which needed an adaptation to this situation. And as I told you, these 150 projects are not just from the administration project, but also there was a shared commitment from the public entities, private NGOs, universities, research, etc. So there was a real action plan, a real participative and a choral action plan. One of the actions arising from this action plan on food waste prevention was the law on prevention of food losses and waste, which was approved last year. I think it was the last law to be approved before the pandemic on the March last year, with the unanimity of all Catalan Parliament, which is I can assure you, a very incredible exception, taking into account the usual how it works in the Catalan Parliament. So there was a unanimity of the whole parties, and it has been, as far as we know, the first regulation on food waste prevention covering the entire food chain, which is also something that makes it different from other regulations of food waste prevention until now. Concerning reuse and IRC, I will just to show you two projects in which we have been involved and are still involved. The Rewind project, which was a Life Plus funded project, which ended last year, and which aimed at demonstrating the viability of implementing a reuse scheme of wine bottles in Catalonia with high success. And now we are working on how to implement it really. It might be by means of the Catalan law on the waste and resources, or by means of voluntary approaches. It's still under discussion. The second project I want to also highlight in this presentation is a Subtract also Interreg Europe project funded, which concentrates on the post-startup and scale-up phase to render reuse centers effective and durable. For example, to have a steady flow of incoming and outgoing goods well prepared for reuse, a professional management, suitable financial strategy, and an attractive image for the users. So we are working together, different regions, together under the direction of Interreg Europe, also with this kind of methodology, this shared agendas methodologies, in which we try to demonstrate and make this reuse centers competitive. And that was an introduction of some of the things we are doing from the Waste Agency in the field of circular economy. But coming to the last point, Catalonia Ecodesign Award, let me tell you that this award has been already launched in the 4th edition, 2021. There are 3 categories of awards. There are awards for products already on the market. In the category B, it's products under development, and there category D, which is devoted for young design. The participants are designers, manufacturers, or promoters from Catalonia. There's an opportunity for innovative products and services. The awards include 6,000 euros awards for categories A and B, and 3,000 euros for category D, plus a diploma, plus the participation in the award traveling exhibition, which can go throughout Catalonia and sometimes abroad. Also the inclusion in the award catalog and the inclusion in dissemination activities on the field of eco-design. For this 2021 edition, we have received 132 nominees. Now we are on the point of analyzing all the candidates, all the proposals. The award ceremony of this edition, this 4th edition, will be on the 14th October in Barcelona. The Catalonia Ecodesign Award is in reality an evolution of the Design Award for Recycling, extending its scope to go beyond the design for recycling and to include any other eco-design strategy. So the award is part of one of these strategies I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the Catalan Ecodesign strategy. And this is a picture showing the different editions from 2001 to 2013. It was a Design for Recycling Award, and from 2015 to this year and beyond, it's the Catalonia Ecodesign Award. The evaluation criteria with which we analyze the candidates, it's the basic criteria include the inclusion of eco-design strategies and contribution to the circular economy, the quality of the design, the innovation, and the degree of development of the entry for products under development. So this point criteria not for products already in the market. Additional criteria that we are assessing are, for example, the application of environmental evaluation methodologies, such as life cycle assessment, for example, or others, the possession of labels that accredit the environmental benefits of the product, such as eco-labels, for example, the implementation of environmental management system in the design and development processes, for example, the ISO 14006, and then also the social and economic impact of the project and the impact on the everyday culture and behavior of customers. Related activities include, for example, some of the results of the third edition, 2019, were 104 entries, 35 finalists. That was the entries going to the second stage of the analysis, 3 award winners, 8 special mention of the jury, 5,000 catalogs printed and distributed abroad, 10 exhibition locations, including in the 2019 edition in Germany, in Cologne. Also 28 workshops on circular design, 22 guide visits and school activities, etc. And the related activities include also traveling and virtual exhibition, catalog into 3 languages, seminars and workshops addressed to students and professionals, carbon footprint of award winner products and services, and a promotional video. This was about the Catalonia Ecodesign Award, and just a final point, a final call to what will be happening in November this year in Catalonia, which will be the Circular Economy Hotspot Catalonia 2021, which is part of a set of circular economy hotspots that have been taking place since 2017. This initiative was launched by the Netherlands. Then came also other countries and regions participating: Luxembourg, Scotland, Belgium, and 2021 edition will be in Catalonia. Please, Lotte, if you can launch the video. So this was to introduce you what will be happening in November this year in Catalonia. You are all invited to attend this event. There will be a 4 days event in which we will be showing you many cases, many examples of circular economy in enterprises and others in Catalonia. Please take note of this website in which you can be up to date about the organization of this circular economy hotspot 2021. And that's what's all. Just available, of course, for any question you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfred. We are open to take questions, and Mart, directly to you. Maybe there are already questions.
Yeah, we do have an audience question from Marianne. It consists of many questions, so maybe I'll read them out to you in one go, and then you can reflect on it. So it's about the Ecodesign Award, which they find very interesting. And the question is that, did you work directly with the municipality? And can this methodology be shared as a good practice with other regions or cities, so that this award could be launched elsewhere? And the final question is, in order to launch this award, is the city required to have a circular economy action plan or strategy? So yeah, whether you work with the municipality, is there a requirement of having an action plan or strategy in the circular economy for this as well?
Okay, thank you, Matt, for your questions. In fact, it's an award which is much more oriented to enterprises and designers and students than oriented to local administrations. So we are working directly with companies, directly with design schools, and directly with this kind of people. So we are orienting our dissemination activities to this kind of people, not to local administration. We have other products addressed to local administration, which we can speak about them afterwards if it is needed. And concerning the possibility of sharing this type of awards, or there's already an initiative which is beginning to run concerning the Mediterranean Action Plan and the Regional Activity Center for Sustainable Consumption and Production, which is now launching a similar Ecodesign Award in the Mediterranean region, which has been from a collaboration with us. So, of course, we are open for collaborations with other regions, other states, other local administrations who want to organize such an award to share our experience. It's already 20-year experience on awards.
Alfred, a question from my side here. Do you follow up on the winners of the award? What happens with them if they develop well? Is there some activities in this respect?
What we see, we are not following up strictly, but we are following up in a certain way. One of the things that we are observing is that, for example, once you present a product to the award, and obviously if you reach to be a winner or mentioned project, there's a high probability of coming back to other editions of the award. So they might consider, some of them consider the awards that help them to show that eco-design is a good path to follow with their products. Once you begin, I think the Eco-Design Award is something that helps companies to begin a new orientation, new strategy. And what we see is that once you have already participated in the awards, you continue working on eco-design for other products.
Yeah.
Because you already see that there's the good way to go.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. There are a few more questions.
Yeah, please go on.
If I may. So there is one question, because you mentioned that you work mostly with companies, but there was still a clarifying question whether you also work or collaborate with chambers of commerce and industry.
Of course, they're one of the channels we use. We collaborate with, for example, with the associations of industrial design. So there you can find many companies already working on design, and then we want to introduce them to the eco design. That's a difference. So we work also with the Barcelona designers, which is an institution in which all companies working on design have a meeting point. So we come there and show them how to introduce also eco-design. The Ecodesign Award is in fact not just the awards, but it's also an excuse or to make different things. For example, to Ecodesign Award means that we will in the dissemination phase, we will go to 10, 15 design schools with professors there to have a point, to make 2 hours meeting with students to introduce them to eco-design, so that designers of the future will already have into their minds what is eco-design, for what are the benefits of eco-design. We try to also, and sometimes we bring our traveling exhibition with us to even malls. You can imagine the exhibition in a mall, so that citizens can also be the benefits of eco-design in normal products of their real life. So it's something that we use for many things, the award. And
I think
that's us.
This shows
not just the award, it's the award and many things that go surrounding the award.
Exactly. So the winner's label and the financial prize is just one aspect. The entire process is maybe even more important. There's one last question, which is very concrete, and it's about the conference that you mentioned. Is the entry free of charge, or is there a fee to attend?
There will be both possibilities. So the first thing, it's not yet well defined. So there will be cases in which there will be a fee. In other cases, it will be for free, and it's not already well defined. What I would suggest is to this person is to be up to date with this within this website, and if they register themselves, they will get more information about this, about the future decisions on this point.
And maybe if they have to climb that human tower, that things like that.
Why not?
Before we change, thank you, Alfred. Before we change the topic, I wanted to give the occasion that at least Øyvind, I know you have also in Kristiansand some kind of business competition. We discussed that earlier when we were preparing the webinar. Maybe you want to say a few words about that also. If you are there.
Can you see me? Yeah.
You can. You are on stage, Øyvind. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, we've had a competition for business ideas. It's like the early start of a startup. So we wanted to see if we could analyze what was going on in the city and region. So we invited startups, or even before they were startups, to come up with green ideas. It could be within the solar energy, it could be within renewable energies, could also be within a circular economy. And we managed to set up a business competition by the help of the partners in the region. And we've had this annually since 2011, 2012. And some of these, actually some of these startups also managed to have some support through the Climate Launchpad, which was a part of the Climate-KIC that was presented earlier today. So we also had the possibility to benefit from the Climate Launchpad, which we were really happy for. So it's a way to analyze and to track what's going on in the region for early stage startups.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll see if later on if Iain has a few words about that too. But in order not to lose too much track of the time, then I would suggest that we move to the next topic. So Øyvind, you can stay on stage. Thank you, Alfred. We will call you back for the panel discussion on the financial incentives for sure. And Øyvind, so the stage is yours for the Eco-lighthouse case.
Thank you. Is it okay, Lotte? This is Luc. So the picture is okay now?
You have to click on this listening instilling thing. Yeah. Now? No, it's perfect. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you so much to Luc and the organizers for this invitation. We are proud of the case that I'm about to present is something that we're really proud of because it was invented and developed in Kristiansand. It's for many companies, it's for many SMEs and small companies in particular. It's the first step on its way to green transition and to a more circular business model. Just really short, where are we? City of Kristiansand is on the southern tip in the southern region of Norway. It's a coastal city, and our industry, and it's sort of represents maritime businesses. We've had sailing ships, maritime shipping for many years, and it turned into also to offshore businesses, which due to the oil price downturn now is on its lookout for new products, new markets using the same technology, but on green and the green economy. And the manufacturing industry, which we also had the pleasure of having in the city center, also actually for many years, maybe more than 100 years, it's always been circular. They have always tried to use their waste, the waste streams, to find new business opportunities and new materials for value at a later product stage. So what is Eco-lighthouse? That it's a certification scheme originally aimed at small and medium-sized enterprises. Now it's both for public and private companies, entities. It's a certification scheme and an environmental management scheme. So it's a way of increasing the environmental performance of the companies. So it allows you to do an analysis by the help of consultants. It makes you better in a position to make smart choices, and eventually it helps the small business to create a competitive advantage of sustainability. And I will get back to some of these elements. So which areas do this certification scheme analyze? It's a process which takes like 2-3 months together with a consultant. The areas of analysis is waste, which we have been talking about in earlier presentations. It's transport, the purchase of the company or the business or the public entity, energy, and also the working environment. So it's an effective and simple tool for the companies, and more simple and more effective than the other more well-known certification schemes. So what's really going on in this process is that it is like a circle of activities like you're doing on annual basis. You follow up on the green routines on a daily basis. You have internal training. You have you prepare the communications plan. You submit annual environmental reports, environmental criteria for subcontractors, which is important. I will get back to the supply chain, which is so important for a company. You will each year set higher goals for your own environmental performance. And this is sort of a first step on its way to a more circular model for the company. But somewhere you have to start. And maybe the first year, it's only to become more aware of what you do with all of the waste and the energy choices you have made. But it allows you to reflect on what you're doing and to all the time increase your environmental performance. There is a recertification process every 3 years, and you're also welcomed into a network with other Eco-lighthouse enterprises, and you can learn from each other. So it's basically a certification scheme which is all the time doing continuous improvement management. So the background of the Eco-lighthouse was all the way back to 1996, when City of Kristiansand actually established the first pilot of the Eco-lighthouse, because there were some few small companies that wanted to do something to become more sustainable, and it was too complicated to start the ISO process. So basically the idea was to make it easier for the small and medium-sized enterprises, but also public institutions, to become more eco-friendly. And this again would be something that they could use with customers and others, partners, to increase their competitiveness. Well, I have this certificate, then I am sustainable, and I do have some sustainable practices in my company. So what happened is that later the Ministry of Environmental Affairs joined some years later, and some other cities like Oslo, Trondheim, Tromsø, and many others, and regions in Norway, and the main trade unions, business confederations, the associations of municipalities, and others were the founders, and it was established as a non-profit organization in 2004, and it has been self-funded, self-financed ever since 2004. So like from the early days, it was only aimed at small institutions, but now it has developed and grown from early pilot phase to like 72 applicable industries by specific criteria. So it's and also divided into 14 groups of classified according to the Norwegian standard industrial classification. So it has become a much wider certification scheme, and now it's also very interesting for the larger companies, and they have more and more companies, larger companies, that are being certified through Eco-lighthouse. And the Norwegian government, through Standard Norway, regards the Eco-lighthouse as a complementary scheme to the ISO 14001 and the EU EMAS system, since its industry criteria constitute concrete and relevant measures, offering understandable and applicable way for enterprises to implement environmental management. So it's a widely used environmental management system. Right now, it has like 7,500 certifications. Many companies, large and small, and some companies have daughter companies and smaller administrative units, and each site can be certified. So it's something that many companies have several certificates. But it started as a certification for small companies, and still we see that the small companies are the most those who use the certification at most. So close to 82% of all certificates are from companies with less than 50 employees, and 16% between 50 and 250 employees. I am a project leader in an Interreg Europe project, which has had a specific look at small and medium-sized companies and startups, how we can sort of trigger more green startups in the green economy and more green jobs. So what we did like last year was we did a study on startups and SMEs in the green economy. We had a look at what could trigger and what could hamper the development of more green startups. And what were the obstacles, public policies, funding for transition, etc. So what we found that there is a continuous need for more funding, and we have heard already today some interesting stories about green sector awards, green eco-label awards. But one of the things that we noticed was that there is an insufficient market demand, and this corresponds well with other surveys and studies. In Norway, we had a study from 2019 which examined the pace of the green transition in Norway. And it found that the environmental requirements across industries are often very general, and only 25% of the companies experienced demand for green products and services. So what the public sector should do is to increase the awareness of the green products, sustainable products, also in applying more legislative and regulatory changes, as you can see on the bottom there. So both we have to increase the use of green public procurement, but also be aware of that when we can choose between products, we have to choose in legal ways more green and sustainable products. So the supply chain and carbon emissions, many companies are more and more aware of this, but The Economist had an article from 2019 which focused on the supply chain and carbon emissions, and many companies were not aware of that the emission levels could be up to 20 times higher from its suppliers and from customers than from within its own organization. And we know that the importance of supply chain is something that more and more companies are aware of, but we need more focus on it. So it's also another study from a Harvard article. It's focused on multinational companies, the global companies. All the global companies also must increase its efforts to develop sustainable supply networks. Social and environmental responsibility is important beside the economic considerations at every level of the supply chain, because many of the big companies, they are only focused on the first tier of supply level. So now it has to be, they have to be more concerned with the rest of the tires and work as like a consultant for its own partners on the supply. So we already heard today from Luc about the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, and there are some sectors with high potential for circularity. Some of the sectors I mentioned, like electronics and ICT, but I will have a focus now on the next slide on construction and buildings, which is perhaps one of the sectors that we need to address really early. Construction and buildings are representing 38% of the total global CO2 emissions, according to a study from UNEP. And this means that we need to to cut direct building CO2 emissions by 50% already by 2030. And this equates to around 6% per year. And we have to do this by also looking at what Alfred mentioned already in the design level of products and materials, to the building, operational costs and execution, and also circularity and life cycle perspective of buildings. And the Eco-lighthouse has also is focusing on the construction and building industry and all the different parts of the building and construction, from the owner, projecting, construction, operating, and have general industry criteria and more specific criteria. And we have already companies that has been certified, which also underline that it is increasing their business competitiveness. Like this company from Norway, which was actually acquired last year by a big company, they said that it was important for their reputation in the industry. It was important because they could attend more tender competition, and they were actually more eco-friendly. So it's both, all the three parts are equally important. So increased awareness on green transition and change. And we have seen last 2 years, especially in Norway, that the focus on the green transition has become imperative and much more aware among business leaders. And 3/4 of Norwegian business leaders in big companies in a survey recently said that they saw huge business opportunities in the green transition. And so businesses are more and more ready to enter into the green transition and to become more circular. Another study from last year was aimed at consumers, and it was IBM with partners had a study of 19,000 consumers in 28 countries on shopping habits, drivers of brand and product choice, consumption patterns, etc., and their willingness to change behavior. And 6 in 10 consumers said that they were willing to change shopping habits to reduce environmental impact. And 8 in 10 respondents indicated that sustainability was important for them. So both businesses are more and more ready to step into the green transition and to become more green and eventually more circular, and the consumers as well. So the public sector can also join the Eco-lighthouse, as I said in the beginning, and more than 300 cities and municipalities in Norway are fee-paying members of the Eco-lighthouse and the certification scheme. Many of them have also already been certified, including also several regional administrative levels. And what the municipality does is that we provide certifiers. We are helping to provide certifiers, and they will be trained and educated and licensed by Eco-lighthouse. So it's like a education system for the authorization of the consultant. And we promote and motivate local enterprises to become certified and to work towards certification of the municipality itself. Municipality Kristiansand is, of course, Eco-lighthouse certified. It is also approved by the Norwegian public procurement authorities, and you can use it optional, as you can certify certification contract evaluation criteria in the tender. You can also say that the successful bidder must commit to certification within a certain time period, or last, you could have a qualification criteria to be allowed to participate in the tender competition. And in Norway alone, annual public procurement spending is actually more than 500 billion Norwegian kroner, which is around 50 billion euro. And very important. This Eco-Lighthouse Foundation is the first national certification scheme in Europe to be recognized by the European Commission. The recognition verifies that the scheme holds the standard and quality on a par with international eco-labeling schemes like EMAS and ISO 14001. So last but not least, there is a need for action, both from public authorities to do something on the green transition and for the public authorities to become more circular, and the SMEs and the companies. Certification is a good place to start. It's still, for many companies, it's still regarded as complicated, costly, and time-consuming. But Eco-Lighthouse has proven in Norway, at least, that it's an easier path for enterprises to become more eco-friendly and at the same time improving their competitiveness. It's a first and important step towards circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Øyvind. Mart, maybe we have 1 or 2 questions. We have a few minutes to take questions to Øyvind from the audience.
Yep, there are some questions, and some of them are quite detailed, which I would propose that we leave them after the webinar to facilitate this direct contact and discussion. But one question that I can take from the audience is, in the certification process, is also transparency taken into account? So information flows and also like power dynamics between employers and the owners. Is it somehow part of it?
Yes, it is, and it also it touches also, and it addresses also the internal and external regulations as health, safety, and environment. So it's transparent, and it provides information to be used as documentation for your sustainability. I can provide more information if that's needed, of course.
Sure. Luc, do we have time for one more question, or do we go?
We have one more question, and then we need to move to the next section. Yes.
So the question is about this survey you did within your project, and you also mapped the obstacles that SMEs have. And one of the obstacles on your slide listed is this insufficient market demand. But on the other hand, we also have talked about the consumer preference going towards more eco-friendly brands and products. So can you just briefly explain what was meant by this insufficient market demand?
Yes, it is what we meant is that in the business in which the company operates, if it's in the market or in the value chain of the business, then the businesses experience that their customers do not demand eco-friendly products. And if a company has, but we have these products that are much more eco-friendly than our competitor, and sometimes or very often the big company say that the price is more important. So as long as it holds the standards of like CE marking or things like that, that's sufficient for us. But we should move towards the process that the big companies, the customers, also said we would like to have the most sustainable products in the value chain.
Also in the B2B.
Yes, exactly. So that's 25% of the companies in Norway said in a study last year that only 25% experienced that there was a demand for more eco-friendly products and technologies.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Øyvind. As Mart mentioned, we will come back to open questions, which are more detailed and relevant to the topic and in relation with Øyvind. And we would move now to the third section of our and the third topic of our webinar, which are the financial incentives. And with the presentation from Iain Gulland from Zero Waste Scotland, will introduce a bit the organization and more specifically what they are doing in terms of financial incentive. Iain, you can share your screen. You should be.
Okay. Thank you again, Luc, and Thank you for the opportunity to present again. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
We can see the screen, we can hear you well, go on.
Good, right, thank you. So, I'm Iain Gulland and work for Zero Waste Scotland, and I'll talk a little bit about the organisation, and as I've been asked to do, talk specifically about the kind of financial incentives that we've put in place to support the transition for businesses to the circular economy. So Zero Waste Scotland is fully funded by the Scottish Government. We are their circular economy experts. We have about 160 staff working on a variety of projects in the circular economy and waste prevention and supporting, and we have an energy project as well, energy efficiency project, with an annual budget of about 25 million euros. Our primary aim is to, support Scotland reduce its environmental footprint or its carbon footprint. Scotland itself has had a circular economy strategy, a national circular economy strategy, since 2016. So we've basically developed a programme of activities to support the delivery of that strategy. We basically, this diagram sort of shows the three areas that we predominantly work. So clearly we are still trying to maximise the value in terms of recycling of waste and resources that are kind of leaking out of the system. But more and more we are focused on the reducing demand, so reducing the consumption, the overconsumption, or making smarter consumption choices, both as individuals, as citizens, and as businesses, and ultimately thinking about the production phase of materials and products, and that's where we see the circular economy is absolutely key to that, to help both reduce the kind of leakage of materials as waste, reduce demand, but ultimately create a much more dynamic production and consumption cycle within Scotland and globally. So clearly we can help demonstrate how that can be delivered at a global level. But we've always seen businesses, working with businesses both individually and collectively, as key to our ambitions around the circular economy. It was very much front and centre of the strategy in 2016, how could we engage more proactively with businesses. So I'll focus on that. I mean, obviously there are other activities we're involved in promoting the circular economy in Scotland, but I'll focus on our business and our financial incentives. So it might just be useful, before I talk specifically about our investment fund, just to show that our support for businesses, there's kind of 5 parts to it. They're all very much interlinked, and we have our nationally we have a kind of cities and regions approach. So primarily on the sort of 7 main cities in Scotland, in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, etc., where we are working directly with not just the municipalities, but other key partners like Chambres of Commerce, key industry sectors on the ground, to identify opportunities, both individual business opportunities, but supply chain opportunities as well around the circular economy. And that is identifying businesses that we can work with. We have a dedicated business support service, which is one-to-one through expert consultancy to understand not just their ambition, but put in place specific support to analyse market opportunities or technical applications that they might need to take forward. And then we have an investment fund, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But sitting alongside that, we have a national network of companies who are already on the journey at various stages of that, so they can support each other and learn from each other. And within that now, because there's so many organisations we're working with, they are kind of regionally supporting each other as well. And as I'm sure other people will be doing, would provide a number of innovation workshops and various things online now, obviously, to get people excited or inspired about what is possible, as well as some specific technical support as well, sort of one-to-many. So it's kind of, there's a bit of a flow, as we call it, in an ideal world where we're getting people interested through the cities and regions work and the network. We would then seek to support the individual companies outline exactly what they would like to do and how they would like to take their ideas forward in terms of circular economy business, and then ultimately get to a point where we potentially would invest in them. So it's kind of that's the theory. In practice, it's all very different, of course. Companies approach us at different stages and for different levels of support, not quite through a kind of formal channel. So what have we been doing to date? So certainly this work has been co-funded by European structural funds over the last 3.5 years. We have, in terms of the investment fund, we're currently investing in 57 businesses. We have invested £10 million, or about 10 million euros, 11 million euros, out of a total pot of 18 million euros we have to commit. So we're up to about 10 million of that. We have also, that money that we've invested has levered in private investment of about £26 million. And these companies are forecasting to employ about 270 people and with significant carbon savings per annum on the back of that. Over and above those 57 companies that we're working with directly in terms of investment, you know, we are working with about another 250 in terms of our one-to-one support. So we're not giving them money as such, but we're providing technical and other basically business support, as I said, through our circular economy business support service, and hopefully, you know, some of those companies will be future companies we would like to support. So one of the things that we have done in terms of the Circular Economy Investment Fund, you know, at the start it was very much just a fund that people could bid for financial support, but we recognised that a lot of the companies we wanted to work with or were interested in that support weren't quite at that investment stage. So we did after about a first year and a half, we developed what we call a development grant, which is up to a maximum of £50,000. So we can provide that to some business who are not investment ready, whose idea they still would like to test out perhaps, or to provide you know, some further market analysis or do some more innovation within their product. So we will provide that, and that's seen as being a key stepping stone now for some of the bigger investments that we've made. I thought it might just be useful to just outline a few case studies. There are obviously quite a lot of case studies, so I would probably recommend that if people are interested to go to our website, zerowastescotland.org.uk. There is a specific part of our website called the Circular Economy Acceleration Centre, which outlines all of the services that are available to businesses, but also case studies and a variety of other tools and support mechanisms or videos that people can watch to hopefully get some support. There's also a good reference tool for people who are interested in what's happening in Scotland. So this is Keynote. This is a specific brick. It's called the K brick. It was actually invented in one of the Scottish universities by a professor at Heriot-Watt University. It's made from 90% of construction waste, or 90% of it is from construction waste. It's unfired, so therefore it generates 1/10 of the emissions in its manufacture from normal bricks. So certainly we're all keen to reduce the embedded carbon impacts of construction. Then this brick is 1/10 of a normal brick. It was actually nominated as Product of the Year last year, or 2019, by the UK Museum of Design in London, and it's obviously comes in many colours apparently as well. It's obviously companies that we've now supported to scale up production and manufacturing in Scotland. Again, it can be done locally, it can be done almost on site, you know, to make sure that construction waste can go back into buildings. This is quite an interesting one in the current situation. So Trade Right International were basically an organisation that provided shampoo and conditioner for the hospitality industry. I'm sure we all know about these types of sachets that we get if we go to hotels. They were very interested in a a refill scheme to do that, to go to hotels and get the material brought back, and they could refill it. They were quite far down with their thinking on that. But when COVID happened, they decided to switch their idea to address the issue that we all had, I'm sure, in terms of sanitizer, hand sanitizer, lotion, and the bottles. Although a lot of, certainly in Scotland, a lot of production switched in terms of our distilleries and our breweries to make hand sanitizer fluid. One of the things that really restricted the deployment of it at the early stage of the COVID pandemic was actually bottles, and getting the stuff out to hospitals and to other care establishments. So Trade Right International developed an idea around refilling hand sanitizer bottles in the National Health Service situation on the front line. So we've been working with them on running a trial, a very successful trial in one of the hospitals in the west of Scotland, and certainly the NHS are now very keen to roll that out in years ahead, to make sure that in future similar crises, and hopefully we don't have them, but clearly there's a recognition that not just from an environmental point of view, but certainly from a resilience point of view, that such a refillable scheme is of benefit. Renewable Parts is an organisation which has recognised an opportunity to provide refurbishment of wind turbine components. So as we clearly all accelerate our deployment of infrastructure for renewable, not just wind, but other renewable energy infrastructure, that there's a lot of component parts that are becoming obsolete very quickly as we power up, as the technology advances quite considerably. So Renewable Parts are a company who have now provided close working relationship with customers to refurbish and repair and remanufacture all of the component parts of that infrastructure, and forming quite significant close working supply chains with the industry as we advance the technology. And it's clearly we've all seen the numbers around the opportunities within the supply chain are considerable, particularly around jobs in that remanufacturing, and again doing them at a local level, where the deployment is critical. So it's Renewable Parts. We've invested in them, and they've now developed a refurbishment and repair centre in the northwest of Scotland, in the kind of Highlands region, where there is a lot of deployment, obviously, of wind turbines. This is just integrated graphene company. I'm sure everybody is aware of graphene, the next super material. Clearly, there's opportunities for it to a number of applications. One of the ones that we've been very keen on is how to make electric car batteries and other mobility batteries lighter, hold the charge longer, and improve its lifespan. So graphene is seen as an opportunity there. So this isn't so much about supporting the manufacture of graphene. It's really about a revolutionary design process in terms of its application, and making it flexible, and it can be used much quicker and deployed much easily in a number of different environments. So we've been investing in that company as well. So I could go on, and like I say, we've been working with companies who are looking to use waste materials from our whisky industry, for instance, the byproducts from our whisky industry, to look at fuel sources as well as high value proteins, to go back into the food and agricultural industry, working with companies looking at accessing, well, basically waste seaweed and algae to try and establish nanocellulose technologies to deploy that again back into the food and agricultural industries as well. So quite a lot of this is about accessing the opportunities that we have within our mainstream industries in Scotland. So not just solving their waste and byproduct issues, but tapping into resources that are already being to some extent are in cycle within our economy, and that's very much been the shift in focus. So rather than looking at this as that, what do we do with a waste, what clever thing can we do with a waste, but actually looking about how can we redeploy our resources back into our economy and make, obviously better environmental decisions, but there's much more economic and even resilient in terms of supply chain opportunities, as well as job creation, and that's very much been the shift over the last 18 months to 2 years in government thinking. So I'll leave it there. I mean, as I said, we've learned quite a lot in the process of investing in businesses. I think we probably could talk quite at length about that. Others have mentioned it's not all about the money. It's quite often about the market and the availability of the technology that's required, the deployment of technology that's required. Public procurement has been mentioned. That is another area of work that we're focused on. A lot of the companies we've worked with supply to the public sector and recognise that the public sector could really create a real market pool for their services and products if there was greater alignment. So there's a number of other programs of work that we're involved in to ensure that the investments that we're making are successful in the long term. I'll leave it there, Luc. Thank you.
Thank you, Iain. Maybe a short, quick question from my side. Do you have other kind of financial incentives besides the investment funds? Do you have some other kind of funding schemes related to circular economy?
Is there other ones?
Yeah.
So the ones we provide are grants, and we obviously work. There's other parts of government who provide some loan finance as well. Okay. So some of the companies that we've worked with have had a grant from us and other support from other parts of the public sector. So our more mainstream enterprise agencies, for instance, there's one of the companies we work with on whisky byproducts that has had sort of a combination of support. We also have, we work alongside some of the private sector investment, and that's an area that is growing of interest. People are much more interested in the circular economy opportunities, and come to our events to, we wouldn't quite call it matchmaking, but certainly we introduce a lot of our companies to businesses at an early stage, and we've been working. Well, I mean, unfortunately, COVID has probably disrupted that a little bit, but prior to that, we were formed a partnership with one of the banks in Scotland. With an agreement to work with them on working more closely, providing generic business support to some of the companies we were working with, because our expertise is in the technology and the carbon measurement of the impact of that. We're not formally a business support agency, so we're always looking for a partner to provide that kind of more in entrepreneur support that you might get for some of those companies. So there's a lot of interest, and we're seeing growing interest in the companies we work with, and others as well that are not every circular economy business in Scotland works through us. Some of them are just quite happy to go off and do them. But we do reach out to them, and hopefully get them as part of the network at least.
Okay, thank you, Iain. Maybe you can stay just on stage, let's say, for the concluding remarks in a few minutes, but I will just maybe give 2-3 minutes. Alfred, do you want to come shortly back to your financial schemes? Maybe you can come back with us, and we could have a quick look at your slide on financial incentives. We mentioned that we might come back to that. So Lotte, maybe you can. Yeah, exactly. We can see it. Go on.
Okay, you can hear me also?
Yes.
Okay, now it's very quickly, not 2-3 minutes, even less. Just to show that we have different types of grants. Some of them oriented to just hire expert services on circular economy innovation, and these are very small ones. The Innotech grant oriented to projects on research and development on circular economy with at least one company and one technology provider. Then we have also the nuclei on research and development on circular economy, which are oriented on innovative R&D on circular economy for new products and technological services of high risk that aim to cover market needs. Then there are also other grants oriented for the promotion of projects to accelerate the transition to a more circular economy, improving resource and material efficiency from the point of view of waste. They include also pilot projects and also implementation ones. Also some other projects oriented, some other grants oriented to prevention and preparation for reuse and recycling of industrial waste. And then also specific grants for waste treatment plants, private waste treatment plants. So there's a very, I should say, very comprehensive and also in some cases difficult to understand field of possibilities. We are trying to make it easier for companies to identify which is the best grant for them. In particular, if I make a point on the promotion of circular economy grants, which is one of the grants that is provided by the Waste Agency in which I work, in the period 2016 and 2019, 4 years period, we have granted about 300 projects with a total amount of about 8 million euros. This is an example of our grants, which also definitely are helping many companies to accelerate their transition to the circular economy. Thank you, Luc.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that, Martha, I think we have a questions on grants from the audience. We can maybe just take it briefly.
Yeah, so the question is that so that systems change, outcomes cannot be predicted. And so how does a grant or project-based funding help if, let's say, you'd want to build an innovation ecosystem?
Yeah, I think if I can answer, I mean, I think that the grants is a challenge. I think when we set out the development of that prior to 2016, you know, we probably were quite naive about what we thought the circular economy transition would look like. And absolutely, I think it's much more complicated. So I think our grants are probably more traditional, invest in a business type of operation, and they have a degree of success. But I think the real challenge is it is much more, you know, complicated than that, the circular economy. And I think one of the things that we've come up against is quite a lot of the time it's a group of companies that want to work together, or a supply chain that needs investment at, you know, across the supply chain, or even, as you said, to develop some sort of innovation across the supply chain. That's very difficult. You know, the usual way of delivering grants as a public agency, and even with every respect using European funding, and the rules around that is, you know, you have to have a lead organization or a lead company. You only invest in one company. You know, quite often it's not project specific. It's for a company and investment, and there's rules attached to it. And clearly, we abide by European rules, and we abide by, you know, Scottish government public money rules as well. So I think that is one of the challenges. If we are seriously, I've had those conversations at EU level, at EIB as well, that this is, so some of the investment that's required both in infrastructure for this, to support the circular economy, and supply chain work, both nationally, i.e. in one country, as opposed to across Europe supply chain, is possibly going to require a different type of funding mechanism that we're probably only at the start of developing. I agree. I think that's something that, you know, there's a lot of talk about investment, but yeah, it's not just investing in one company. It's thinking differently about supply chains and you know, supporting that innovation over time.
Thank you, Jan. That sounds good. Well, we are approaching the end of the meeting. Maybe I would just also ask Øyvind to come back to the stage and ask a short final question, maybe to our speakers. I have prepared a long list, but that will be for the next time. But one thing is the three of you have a long-standing experience in those accompanying the process of this circular transition in your different organization. We've seen that from all three of you at different levels, local, national, almost national. I don't know how, if Scotland is considered national or not, Iain, or Catalonia. But it's at least at a larger level. But we have also in the audience, as far as I can see it, also less experienced people. What would be maybe in a few words, 2-3 minutes, where to start from, or how can you start from in a nice, in an effective way? Who wants to jump first?
Good. I mean, I think that if I could jump, I mean, I'm quite happy to jump in. I think the thing is the circular economy is happening. It's you know, probably was happening before we even started talking about the circular economy. There's a number of businesses already on this journey for all the reasons that people have said. You know, things are changing, demand is changing. People are much more. They might be coming at it from a resilience point of view, or from an economic point of view, from jobs, from social, for environmental reasons, but it is happening. So I think it is just to be much more open about that, you know, to go out and find it, you know, I guess, and to learn from what companies are already doing and the challenges they've had, and clearly learn from others. I mean, you know, colleagues on the call here, we've all been saying the same thing about some of the opportunities are the same, but it's also some of the challenges that businesses still face. The role of, you know, procurement and supply chains, you know. So I you know, as ever, you know, this is about learning from each other and sharing. You know, we're still learning. You know, we've had the fund running for a number of years. We've worked with businesses since 2016, but every few months we learn something new about, you know, how to help and support businesses, and, you know, try and answer some of those questions. And, you know, technical questions are easy to answer, but some of the more supply chain, logistical, and even behavioural change. That's the thing about circular economy. Circular economy is not just about a technology fix. You know, a lot of it is about behaviours. A lot is about consumption patterns, both as citizens and as businesses. You know, changing the way we allocate funding and support. You know, one of the things. Sorry, I don't want to hog it, but you know, one of the companies we work with is Egg Lighting, and they, you know, they have a lease model for light fittings and light itself. It's fantastic. Everybody thinks it's fantastic, but they can't get into the public sector because the public sector buys light fittings. So it's basically it's a purchase. They don't lease light, and if they go to lease light, then it becomes a revenue budget, and therefore revenue budgets are stretched. They don't, you know, they're not encouraged. They're encouraged. Public sector agencies are encouraged to go out and buy things almost. You know, the rate of borrowing is very low at the moment. You know, it's a good time to go and buy things, but not to put things onto your revenue budget. So even things like that need to be switched. You know, we need to start thinking differently about how we apply, you know, fiscal instruments and supply chain opportunities that are not just for a single business to try and address.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen nodding faces from Alfred.
Yeah, from my vision, we have to think of what happened in the past, how the evolution was. If I can remember, in the 90s, when you were speaking about environmental protection with companies, the idea was the environmental protection is a cost for companies. We have to diminish it as much as possible. We have to reduce it. So at that time in Catalonia, we launched a program on what we called cleaner production. Cleaner production was to work on processes and on behavior inside the companies, just to try to make them more competitive at the same time as they were having less environmental impact. So reducing the consumption of water, reducing the generation of wastewater or waste, reducing the need of raw material for their processes, etc. After some years, there was an evolution to not just consider the industrial process, but also to consider the product itself and the impact of the product in its whole life cycle. So we began introducing the concept of designing good products for the market, for the citizens, for the consumers. And I think it has been little by little. We have been introducing the different ideas in the process, and now I think the transition. We were speaking of, or we were working already on circular economy 25 years ago. The only problem is we did not have the concept. We might say that maybe Walter Stachel had already invented the concept, but we were not thinking about the circular economy. We were using other concepts. So this has been a long story, and different things have been happening in the whole in the time. And it's only just in the last 7-8 years that we have begun to really be aware of what is the circular economy, something we might have already in our minds, but now the concept itself has done the thing to help us to put all pieces together. And now that's our vision from the point, my particular vision.
Thank you, Alfred. Øyvind, a few words. We don't very shortly.
Yes. Yeah, I can see we are on time. Yes, as for to speak for a city and a municipality, there are many things we can do. I know there are so many obstacles regarding rules and regulations, VAT questions, how to value this and that. But as a municipality, we should strive for much more open innovation. We should do our best to encourage more use of open innovation, where we don't know what the product in the future will be, but we should be open for many good ideas from companies, as we heard from Iain and from Alfred. Many good ideas out there that so the municipalities and cities, public procurement officers, should be more aware of the creativity out there in the small companies. So we should try to be more green and look for new sustainable products and technologies.
So look, I know you're up against it. I think another thing, sorry, I should have said, is get different people together in a room. I think that's been the biggest success we've had.
Yes.
People from different companies and different sectors. I mean, we've been an organisation that tended to always work in sectors, and there's a role for that, and we still do, you know, in terms of common challenges and common opportunities. But getting the work through the cities, where we brought diverse groups of people together to basically brainstorm, workshop ideas, and see the connectivity that they started to almost solve each other's problems or develop each other's opportunities. That's been the success for us in the circular economy. And so that would be what I'd say to people, you know, get different people in the room and just stand back, you know, because people generally, people like it, people smile, people have smiles on their faces, they like that interaction. And it's been hugely rewarding to see that. Particularly, you know, the work we've done in Glasgow is just, you know, it's gone on leaps and bounds by just creating that almost innovation space, just with human beings connecting with each other who didn't know each other because they weren't in the same sector. You know, but they were all business people, and they were all excited about just, you know, what this was all about.
Thank you, Iain. That will be also a closing words, because that's also what we try to do in the Interreg Europe community. We try to or what you do in ICR Plus, also trying to bring people together. Nowadays it's more online, but that will come back to some different ways to do that also. So I would like to thank you all of you for this very interesting contribution. It's not our last webinar on circular economy. We are discussing on yes, events to come with ICR Plus, because as you've seen, the topic is very relevant and very actual. when the webinar closes, there will be also a survey we'll mention for the audience. It takes 2 minutes to fill it in. That's helpful for us for our events. Please take a few minutes to do that. And very soon, probably latest Monday, the summary and the recordings will be available on the website, so that everybody can. So you can also forward it and then forward the information to the local stakeholders. So thanks all for being here. Sorry for the few minutes above schedule. A large part of the audience remained with us, so that was not so bad. And see you in Barcelona, maybe at the hotspot.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.